Hey, welcome to this week's episode of Hired How to Get the Jobs Weekly Review. My name is Tony Martin, and over the next 30 minutes, we're going to be talking about two things: your questions, my answers, and how to get your resume into the interview stages. How to actually use some systematic steps in order to get you phone calls, because we all have experienced I send a bunch of resumes out and no one calls me back. But before we get to that, let me tell you a little bit about who I am. My name is Tony Martin. I write a blog called howtogetthejob.blog, and I focus on helping professionals with their resumes, interviewing, LinkedIn profiles, social media enhancements. I do resume writing and all those sort of things. I have a passion for this. I've been doing this I've been a staffing recruiting manager for 15 years. I started writing that blog 5 years ago. And for the past couple of years, I was on the executive search side, where I partnered with C-suite executives and boards of directors on not only hiring C-suite executives, but also training the boards of directors on how to evaluate talent. So when it comes to the knowledge, I just have an opinion, right? My opinion is just my opinion, but hopefully, because I've worked with lots of private equity companies, a lot of publicly traded companies, have had lots of clients on the candidate side as well as the corporate side. Hopefully my opinion will mirror more of the opinions that you're going to come in contact with. So now, I have a passion for this. Anyone that knows me will tell you that I am super passionate about these topics. So I definitely appreciate you giving me a thumbs up if you like what you're hearing. If you do like what you're hearing at any time, realize also that the people who watch this either during or afterwards are a large group of people. Most of them are job seekers, but a lot of them are HR professionals, because I give out HR tips. A lot of them are recruiters. So feel free to use the comments section in real time and type out, hey, who you are, what you do, what part of the world you live in, and what are you looking for. Don't give me a paragraph, because I am going to sift through those comments to get to live questions, but certainly give a little blurb about who you are, so that anybody watching this or who watches this later who might be in my network might be able then to reach out to you, because during COVID-19 times, networking stuff is tough. So follow me on Facebook, follow me on Instagram, follow me and subscribe to my YouTube channel. All are labeled Hired How to Get the Job. And the Instagram is more of a daily tip type of feed, and we are still continuing our hashtag 30 for 30. I currently have, I'm looking at my post note, 26 or 25. I finished my 25th resume consult, free resume consult yesterday, on my way to 30 for the month of September. So we're doing good there. If you know of anybody in your network looking for resume advice, a free resume consult, it's 30 minutes with me. I pretty much audit your resume, tell you what I would do. I don't hide anything. I don't say, hey, you got to pay me for me to tell you what I would do. No, I tell you everything that I think you should do to make your resume stronger, and then let you decide at the end if you want to do it by yourself or if it makes sense to partner with me. All right, now let's get rolling to the question of how to win at cold calling your resume. Now, we have all been through the scenario where we apply to a job, we apply to a dozen jobs, we apply to 2 dozen. We apply to 100 jobs and we get 1, 2, or 3 phone calls back to do a phone screen. If you are in that camp, you are normal. Now, this isn't a scientific study that I have a whole bunch of research on. It's just from working with thousands of candidates over the years and hiring thousands of people, and then partnering with people on the corporate side and the resume writing side to just kind of come up with my own estimation. But I think the majority of us will feel like, we apply to a lot of roles and rarely do we get any feedback, except for an automatic email saying that they got it, and then maybe a disqualification email a month later, 2 months later. And why it takes so long to get that disqualification letter 2 months later when they clearly didn't like you because they had your resume on day one. We'll get into some of that too if we have time. But again, if you have any questions while I'm going through this, type them in so that way I make sure I get to them. But first, let's talk a little bit about this. The average person is going to get 1 to 3 interviews per 100. If you're good, you'll get 4, 5, or 6. If you're outstanding, you're going to get 8 or 9% response rate on your resume. These steps are what I give to clients to sometimes triple the response rate. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to get 30, right? If you went from 1, now you might get 3 or 4. If you got 3, you might get 9, up to 9 responses now, but this will help you. First, realize that the beginning of this process is the most competitive part of the process. When you submit an application, you are submitting an application with 450 of your closest friends. So the odds of getting an interview, if they're going to do a phone screen, they're probably phone screening 10 people out of 450. It's a 4.5% chance of actually getting a phone screen. I think if I did my math right, I don't know. Now it bothers me. This sort of stuff bothers me, right, when I'm doing this. 10 divided, it should be simple math. Oh, it's a 2% chance. A 2% chance of actually getting a phone call back, which goes back with the 1 out of 3, right? But here's the truth. If you don't apply to the job within the first 3 days, you're not going to get a phone call, most likely. And I'll explain why. If 500 people are applying to this job, I post it today. Today is Wednesday. I post this job today. I'm not going to look at it tomorrow. I might, just to see how much traction we're getting, how many applicants. But probably on Friday or Monday, I'm going to go in there and I'm actually going to schedule a few hours to go through my candidates. I will then on Monday go through my candidates and I'll see I have 500 candidates there. And I know personally every recruiter has their own numbers. But we know personally that it's going to take 10 phone screens to get to the hire. So what am I going to do? I'm going to find 10 solid people. Now, I might go through candidate 1, candidate 2, all the way to candidate 10 and find 10 solid people, but I'm probably not. It's probably going to take me about 100 to 150 applicants, but we'll just say 100. It's going to take me 100 applicants to find 10 solid people. Now, the way you ensure that you're a solid person, don't get so hung up on the applicant tracking system and the artificial intelligence that's doing keyword searches. That is important. But it's not important in the vast majority of companies you're going to apply to. What's more important are those knockout questions you need to answer. Because I, as a recruiter, when I build the application side, I talk to the hiring manager and I say, hey, I don't speak your language. I speak recruiter language. What are some easy questions that you would like for me to ask in order to sift out these people? So when you answer a question that says, when the question says, how much experience do you have? Look at the job description. It gives you the answer, and there's one right answer. 10 or more years in the job description is required. Therefore, if you have 9.5, say you have 10 years. If you have 7 years of experience, say you have 7 years. Don't lie. But if there's some margin of error, 3, 4, 5 months difference between the right answer and being a runner-up, pick the right answer. Okay, but that's going to go a lot further than worrying about a lot of keywords more often than not. So you need to apply the job within the first 3 days, because once I get to, and the way the system organizes it on my side too, is it's going to organize everyone who answered the right questions first and the earliest applicants. So I might get through the first 100 people, and then I'm going to have 10 people to phone screen. I'm going to move those 10 people into a bucket to phone screen. I've just qualified 90 people. Those 90 people got an email saying thanks, but no thanks. And then the remaining 400 people in this scenario of 500 people applying are just going to sit there in the application status with no communication. Not because I'm a bad guy, not because the recruiter's lazy, but we have to do a time cost analysis here, and chances are, based in history of hiring thousands of people, I understand that someone that's going to be good and strong for this role is in this pool of 10 people. So now I schedule interviews with those 10 people, and then we get through the process. Now, it might turn out that after talking to those 10 people, I only like 2, and I really want to bring in 5. So then I'm going to go back to my pool of applicants a week later, and then maybe I'm going to go from person 100 down to person 75 to find 2 or 3 more people that I like, or 4 or 5, and start the process again. But if you applied on the 4th, 5th, or 6th day, you're probably applicant 505, 702, 803. I am probably never going to see your application, okay? So first, step 1, apply within 3 days of it going live. Next, clean up your LinkedIn profile. There's a few things that really drive me crazy on LinkedIn profiles. First of all, when I look at your LinkedIn profile, I need to see a picture of you smiling, okay? I don't need to see a mugshot. Now, I was in the Marines, as you can obviously tell. I'm pretty proud of it. I talk about it a lot. That is an example of what not to do. Nobody is smiling in that picture. We actually had an expression that we would ask, or we'd always ask the question before the picture. Is this a smile picture or a no smile picture? That was a no smile picture. Your LinkedIn profile needs to be a smile picture. Nobody wants to work with a nudge. If you look like a grump, I don't want to call you. I might still call you, but I'm not going to want to. So also, this This is a professional site, so let's keep our pictures as professional as possible. Next, your header. Look, I get that you're worried for some of you about coming up in searches. So you put business development management, product development management, supply chain analyst. You put all these things that you've done that you can do, but just like an unfocused resume, an unfocused LinkedIn profile is going to hurt you. So if you apply to this job to work with me as an IT infrastructure person, and then I go over to your LinkedIn profile, I see a frown. I don't like that because I want happy IT people. And then I see that your header says IT, procurement. It says 5 different things. I'm not going to think you're very good at IT. I'm going to think you are trying to get a job and you're not very good at anything and you've just done a lot of stuff. So focus the LinkedIn profile. Next, this is the next step. Use the network you have. Once you've applied in the first 24 hours, hopefully. Once you've applied, see in your LinkedIn profile who you're connected with over there, okay? See who is already in your established network. Start liking their posts and their comments regularly. I do not mean you applied today, you see that Tony Martin works there, so now you're going to spend the afternoon liking everything I've ever posted from today going back to 20 years, if they went back that far. But systematically pick a couple today you like, in 3 or 4 days, pick a couple to comment on that are approved. Reshare stuff. Hey, good thing. Reshare this, okay? Like this, reshare this, but pick things that I, as a recruiter, am going to say, oh, look, Joe liked this. Now I'm going to be more open to maybe reaching out to Joe because Joe is a known person. Joe is an ally. If anything, at least I feel like Joe respects me because he likes a lot of my posts and feeds, but you have to do it organically. You can't do it all on day one of the application. So you do it organically, and also on your LinkedIn, be sharing and posting stuff that's interesting to you, that's relevant to the jobs you want. Because then when I go to your LinkedIn profile as a recruiter, which your LinkedIn profile should be on the header of your resume, I should be able to click on it and get to your, or copy and paste it and get to your LinkedIn profile, especially if you have a common name. You don't want me stumbling upon the wrong person or getting frustrated because I can't find you. So, but you want to make sure that as I look at your activity, I see stuff that the hiring manager would get excited about. So be posting that stuff, sharing that stuff. Then, if you don't have anybody working in this organization, which is often what the case is if you're not getting calls back because you already would have reached out to them, create a value chain, okay? Create a network. After you've applied to the job, connect with people who are inside the silo of the department you're applying to. So if you're applying to a procurement person, anyone that touches procurement, connect with those people inside that company. And then also HR. The reason why you go HR is not necessarily because they're recruiting for your role, because chances are the HR coordinator isn't. But the HR coordinator will probably accept any invitation because guess what? We're in HR and we want to connect with people. So if we want to connect with people, we're going to accept your invitation. And then it lets you look at the HR coordinator's profile, click on that little thing that says more. And when you do that, it's going to give their email address, which gives you the right nomenclature for the hiring manager's email address, because maybe it's first initial dot last name at company. Maybe it's first name dot last name. Maybe it's first name underscore last name, whatever. But it's going to help you now figure out how to actually send a targeted message. So after you've tried to connect to a bunch of people on LinkedIn, the next day, take a look and start liking their posts strategically, systematically, relaxingly, but then reach out to them on LinkedIn if you are actually connected with them and say, don't ask them for an interview. Don't talk to the hiring manager and ask him for an interview. Don't talk to an HR professional and ask them for an interview. You send a humble message. Your message is targeted to them and saying, and frankly, if you've been looking at their LinkedIn, you might say, hey, I really like that article you wrote 2 weeks ago, or that article you shared yesterday, or this. Give them positive reinforcement that what they're doing is bringing you value. And then perhaps they will feel endeared to you, or not indebted, but they will feel some sort of reciprocation to just take a look at your resume. But what you say in that, and I've written some templates on how to get the job.blog, cold calling your resume. You could just copy and paste that and modify it to your needs. But you want to say something like, hey, thanks so much for posting this yesterday. Thanks so much for accepting my connection. Thanks so much for whatever. Short, not a paragraph. I'm really impressed with, again, something. I'm really impressed with how long you've been at KYZ company. I'm really impressed with this. In your expert opinion, I would love it if you wouldn't mind taking a look at my background and seeing if I'm a fit for the role you applied to and the requisition number if it's available. You don't ask them for an interview. You butter them up by saying, in your expert opinion, because truthfully, a lot of us want some sort of respect and we just don't get it in our lives. And by you doing this, you are showing a few things. You're showing that you're valuing their time, that you're respecting them, and you're stroking all the right subconscious signals that are going to make me want to help move you forward in the process. So what happens is, I would tell you, my old VP of procurement, at least once or twice per requisition I worked with him, he would hand deliver me a resume of somebody that already applied and said, hey, so-and-so reached out to me on LinkedIn. I don't know if they're a fit, but make sure you take a look at their resume. That's all you want, man. It's all you want. You want to make sure someone like me puts their eyes on your resume and gives it a fair shake. Because if you're number 105 and your resume is awesome, and I've already gotten the first 10 people to do a phone screen, I might not call you, or the recruiter might not call you, not because you're not good, not because you're not the perfect fit, but you were just late to the party. And because you're in a different time zone or whatever, or you didn't quite have your resume perfect yet, take a look at those sites too and get familiar with them, because often you can upload your resume once and then you can refresh it later. So don't hesitate to re-upload your resume if you're getting it stronger. Now, the last few steps here. Don't be afraid to follow up next week, okay? After you've connected with people, you've sent them an initial message, they've never responded. Feel free to follow up in a week. Hey, send them a new message. Call the switchboard, call the reception. Say, hey, can I speak with so-and-so? Really tough right now during COVID-19, but hopefully they have cell phones connecting through their desk phones, or they'll just give you their cell phone, or they'll connect you, or whatever. But try to follow up with them. Now, if you do connect with somebody or someone on the HR side, listen to the instructions. This is crucial. I was hiring a lot of high volume positions, and as such, I only had a requisition. I would have many requisitions open every month, but I'd have a pipeline of candidates. So I would tell Mike, I say, Mike, hey, your resume looks good. Thanks for reaching out. Do me a favor, check in with me once a month. Because I don't have anything this month, and I probably won't next month, but maybe by the following month I will, but check in with me monthly. Now, often Mike would check in with me weekly. It gets overwhelming and you can't follow instructions. So I would tell Mike, you can't, after 2 weeks, I'd be like, Mike, I said check in with me monthly. Don't check in with me weekly, check in with me monthly, blah, 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 blah. Now Mike's starting to piss me off because now Mike's calling me every other week. Mike, I would tell Mike this, look, this is the last time I would tell you this, buddy. If you can't follow my simple instructions, I'm not sure you can follow the instructions in this job. Check in with me monthly. I get that you're eager. I get it, but I don't care. That goes back to a lot of other videos I've done. I do care. But truthfully, Mike, you got to follow instructions. Candidates, people out there, if you are lucky enough to reach out to a recruiter and actually get them to talk to you on the phone after you submitted their resume, you've done your part. Follow their instructions. Make sure you say, hey, when can I follow back up with you? Don't hang up that phone until they say, we should have a decision in a couple of weeks or whatever. That's for every step in the process. But then make sure that you follow what they say to the letter of the law and put the calendar reminder in your email, in your whatever Outlook, so that way you get a pop-up on the 23rd of every month that says, check in with Tony Martin about this role or whatever, but follow through with instructions. All right, I said a lot there. Always takes longer than I expect. Sorry, that sucks. But let's get to the Q&A now. I have a lot of questions from clients this week. Again, I'm on this hashtag 30 for 30. I've done 25 resume consults. I have a 26th one scheduled for tomorrow. I'd love to do 30 free resume consults before the end of the month, and we have 7 days left, so I'm ahead of the target for that, so that's great. Not seeing any live questions right now. Again, this is the time to ask them. And I get so many questions via email afterwards, but feel free to ask them here because I love the back and forth. I love the banter. All right, I have read, so this is from Aaron in Arizona. I spoke with him earlier last week, actually. I've heard you talk about professional summaries being the top section of the resume. What if I have nothing to summarize because I just graduated from college? Okay, so I believe, again, don't ever take absolute statements. Anybody. If someone says you should always do this on your resume, you should never do this in an interview, sometimes I can think of a reason why those ideas are okay to do. But professional summaries are for people who have had a summary, a profession to summarize. If you're brand new, graduating college, I prefer the term objective. I prefer you saying, I have a career objective. And it's always to get the job. But hopefully by saying career objective, it justifies it being 1 or 2 lines versus being a paragraph or 3 or 4 lines. It justifies it being a little bit more concise. It talks more about your passions. So you still want to make sure that you include something like that, but you want to call it an objective because I feel like that's probably more realistic. I hope that helps. Eric in South Carolina, I got my MBA in 1990 and don't think I should put my MBA after my name because I think it's less relevant than other MBAs of today. Do you agree? I disagree wholeheartedly. As someone that doesn't have an MBA, as someone that has a PMP, I think strongly that if you got the MBA, I don't care if it was in 1812, I would put first name, last name, comma, MBA on my resume because sometimes that's just the qualifying piece of paper that's required to get you a job or the job that you want to get. I don't care you got it in 1990 and you were ahead of the curve and you were ahead of the wave and you didn't learn about all of the programs and computer stuff that the fact that you have it is what matters. The fact that you had the discipline to go through it matters. Your job is to get that interview, okay? No one's gonna interview you, Eric, and go, so you said you had an MBA. Yeah, okay, when did you get that? 1990. Oh, well, that's not a real MBA. That's from 1990. No, it's an MBA. Yes, there's some of the information isn't as relevant as the information is today, but who cares? Because now you got me on the phone and I am now committed to speaking with you. It's almost like a date, you know? When I was younger, I used to go, hey, you wanna go dinner sometime? And I'd ask a girl to dinner. And then I realized as I got older, God, if I don't like this person, I'm locked in for like a 3-hour dinner or a dinner and a movie. That's a long commitment for someone I don't like. I would much rather do drinks because drinks is maybe an hour. So hey, can you do drinks tonight? Same thing with the interview. You've already got them locked in for that 20-minute dinner or 20-minute drinks or whatever because they picked up the phone and called you, they've scheduled, they've blocked off this time to talk to you. And I guarantee the MBA part isn't going to turn them off regardless of when you got it. So hopefully I haven't beaten a dead horse there, but I think that's a really interesting question that I've never heard before. And we had a really lengthy discussion about it. Eric's actually one of my clients. We finished up his resume last week, but it was a back and forth discussion for a while. All right, next question. With EI traits, can you ever have too much of one good thing? And could that be a reason not to be hired? So if you don't know, EI traits, I do different shows on emotional intelligence and things like that. And if you have any show ideas that you really want me to explore, feel free, because a lot of these topics that come out of the questions I get through from clients as well as from people during the show. But do you have any EI traits? Emotional intelligence, those are the self-awareness, self-control, motivation, empathy, stress tolerance, problem solving, flexibility, integrity, courage, and there's one more. But those traits are the ones that are often the questions that trip people up during the interview. We can all answer the technical questions, right? But if I'm trying to test your motivation or your problem solving or your stress tolerance or your self-awareness and self-control, if I'm trying to ask you questions about that, those are going to be more personal in nature and more difficult to answer. So can you ever have too much of a trait for a hire? Absolutely yes, okay? You can obviously have the trait of having too much motivation. Now, in some situations, I might come over the top on people and be way too energetic and hyper. That's not the same thing. What I mean by is, if I asked somebody in the interview, when's the time you outgrew a job? I'm asking you about motivation. I'm asking you also about self-awareness. I also ask you, what are your expectations for this role? Well, I expect to be in this role for 2 years. Or I look at your resume and I see you get promoted seemingly every 8 to 12 months. I can, hey, looks like over the past 10 years, you seem to have a new job every 8 to 12 months. You're not a job hopper. You've been in the same company, 2 different companies over 10 years. Tell me about that. Oh, you know, blah, blah, blah. I'm really highly motivated, and you go on this tangent. Guess what? If my company only hires or promotes people every 2 years or whatever, or I know this role is one you're going to sit in for a while, you might be too motivated for me. You might not actually fit this job, not because you're not good, but I'm going to be concerned that in 6 months, if I haven't promoted you or someone hasn't promoted you, you're going to want to move on or go somewhere else. So I need to make sure in my interview that I'm discussing that. Maybe you're too high on problem solving. Perhaps I'm asking you questions about jobs you love, and you're like, I love doing jobs where I'm solving problems or project management. I just love solution-based jobs. Well, perhaps the job you applied to, there's no problems to solve. It's a data entry job. We don't care about your opinion. No one would ever say that, but maybe truthfully, this job isn't one that values your opinion. It values your initiative and your motivation and your ability to do things accurately and honestly. So someone who's got high problem solving skills, if I was talking to them, I might figure out pretty quickly that they're going to get bored here and we don't want to hire them. Maybe it's a stress tolerance thing, same thing. Maybe they're going to get bored in the job because they really thrive in a high stressful environment. So there's certainly opportunities and times when you having too much of a good trait is a bad thing. And I also talk about when I do corporate trainings with boards of directors and executive teams, if they're hiring a leader who has high flexibility and high empathy, that can also be a struggle, because sometimes a highly flexible leader able to be nimble is good, but if they're highly empathetic, then they might struggle to pick a lane and make a decision, and they might often kind of flop back and forth, frustrating their team below them and hurting the buy-in that they're getting from their team. All right, Lisa. Okay, Lisa's got a good question. Let me pull her up here. So Lisa, I've been told to only include 10 to 15 years of experience on my resume. What's my opinion? My opinion is, Lisa, it matters for your specific situation. If there is a chance that the experience you had 15 years ago, 18 years ago, 21 years ago, if you have that much experience, is relevant to the job you're applying for tomorrow, then you're doing yourself a disservice by cutting your resume off at 15 years, because the 21-year marker is what you actually need to qualify you for this job. So you should have a long resume. The more senior you get, and I don't mean senior as an age, but senior as an experience, and the more things you've done, it usually makes sense to move from the chronological resume, where you just go date, time, did this, date, time, did this, moving down in time, to a functional resume where you can cherry pick then strong functions you've done, because then that allows you then to make sure that the experience you got 15 years ago, if you love doing it, then you have a good section in the functional first page. And then you ultimately will skim down, you'll trim down the accomplishments going back in your resume. So your resume still might only be 2 or 3 pages long. And I don't believe your resume needs to be only 1 page or only 2 pages. The rules for resume length is you don't repeat bullets ever. I don't care you did the same thing at this company as you did with the last company. You find a new bullet to highlight, okay? You never repeat the accomplishment more than once. You say it once, you move on. You never repeat bullets. You make sure that the bullets you're writing are relevant to the job you're applying for. And then you also make sure that that you actually achieve them, that they're measurable. I pretty much say write them as smartly. Specific to you, they're measurable, you're accountable, it wasn't someone else that did it, they're relevant to the job you're applying for, and you got the timely thing, but you just don't repeat bullets. If they're each one a testimony to why you're awesome, then you're fine with however long your resume ends up being. Most time it still won't be over 3 pages. And then 75-25% split. 75% of your resumes should be accomplishment resumes. Lisa, happy to chat with you though. Feel free to send me your resume. Let's do a free consult. You could be number 27th for the month. And we can sit down and chat, and I can go over your resume and let you know what I think. And good to see you again, because we used to work together, and just good to see you. Will asked, or William, excuse me, you mentioned about resumes being too broad or unfocused, but what do you do when you're a jack of all trades or a generalist in the field? Will, this is a fantastic question, and it might be a good one to end on. If we do get more live questions, I will keep going for as long as the live questions keep coming in, but I will not go to any more of my client questions this week. Now, Will, let me answer your question. When you send out a resume for networking purposes, it's okay to have a general resume. Send out the PDF to all people, okay? Don't send out a Word document to people. Apply with Word documents to companies. Let me say that one more time. When you are applying to a website, a careers page on a website, use a Word document. Lots of reasons why. I've discussed them before. Check out my other videos why. Do it. When you're networking, you send out the PDF. When you're networking, that resume is probably going to be more broad and unfocused because you're just kind of sending it out there and hoping people will forward you along. And when that happens, that's great. But then hopefully what happens is someone knew your contact and says, Will, I came across your resume a couple days ago. Looks like you have some of this in your background. Can you send me a more focused resume on project management or whatever? So hopefully that'll give you the opportunity to do it. Now, when you're applying to something, you don't apply with that generic long resume that's really broad. You say, I've done all these things. I'm going to apply to the job that does this. I am going to strip some of the other stuff out of my resume because it's not relevant for this job. I'm going to focus this resume more. That's why when I work with clients, I really focus on making their resumes longer with quality to allow you at the end of the day to figure out what's not relevant. Or you send me the job description, you go, hey, Tony, can you take a look at both of these? What should I do? And then I'll say, let's strip this stuff out. Let's add this stuff. Oh, we never mentioned this job description requirement. Did you do that? You did. Great. Let's add that in right now. Let's customize the resume for the job. A couple of weeks ago, SPE had a great, I think it was great because I was speaking, but SPE, we did an event on Friday where I talked about how to customize your resume. I have on my LinkedIn or on my YouTube channel videos, how to customize your resume in the shortest amount of time. William, hopefully I'm not offending you by calling you Will. My wife always makes fun of me because I make up people's names or give them nicknames they never wanted. But William, go to the YouTube channel, look for the video on how to customize your resume. It's going to be a 30-minute video like this, but just like this video, the first 15 minutes or first 8 minutes are all about resume customizations and how to do it in the shortest amount of time and how to set yourself up for success. All right, I think I had another question maybe from Mike. Let me take a look before I bring him up. Okay, so Mike asks, what in your opinion on applying to roles that you're overqualified for? Many organizations tend to fill more experienced positions via internal promotions, making those roles hard to find. Well, first of all, apply. Apply to roles you are overqualified for if it's not an extreme exaggeration. If you're a vice president, don't apply to the receptionist role. But if you're a vice president, certainly apply to a manager role or senior manager role. However, you need to answer the questions before they're asked, or you'll never get a phone call. So in your cover letter, you need to say things like, you might wonder why I'm applying to be an analyst when I was a director. Truthfully, in my old company, I really had more passion around the numbers than managing people, or whatever. But by you, now your cover letter may never get read, Mike. Okay, but by you doing that, you've at least given me the reason to call you and say, okay, because most of the time when you don't get the job or the interview because you're overqualified, it's not because you're old. It's because you're expensive. I'm going to assume you want or are used to making 30, 40% more money, and you've only applied to this job because you need a job. And as soon as the market turns around, you're quitting. So you need to answer all of those unasked questions in your cover letter. I may never read it because I might be a lazy recruiter that never reads cover letters. They exist, unfortunately. But if you write it, you have a much better shot of actually getting the interview if you address the compensation piece, if you address the less responsibility. I have a really good friend and client who I mention a lot on this show. But just because I have new audiences every week, Mike, this guy was the president of a global communications company. He wants to be a vice president. He doesn't want to be the chief executive officer reporting to the board. He doesn't want to manage up. He wants to manage down. He wants to lead people. So he's only applying to VP roles, which are probably about $80,000 less than what he's used to making. But we've discussed it, and he's got lots of interviews, and he's hopefully has a couple of offers pending here. But he's been able to answer those questions on the front end as to why he's applying to these roles that may be seemingly not beneath him. I don't want to say that, but something that he did before 10 years ago, 15 years ago, Lisa, in his background. So that's why we had to work on the resume piece to make sure that he was highlighting the stuff that was relevant to the job of today with the information from the past. So let me see if I make sure if I get anything else. And you're right, they're often filled with internal promotions. But look, by applying to those roles, by having a good cover letter, you're increasing your network. You're increasing your reach. Now, to that point though, Mike, do not apply to the analyst role in procurement, and then the director role over operations, and then the communications manager. For William, you might have all this broad information and broad resume stuff. Only apply to one specific thing or one silo inside the company. Remember, recruiter gets your resume first. If I first see your resume and I see that, oh, Mike and Will, they both applied to be this manager role. Okay, cool. And then I see that Eric applied to another role, or then I see that that Eric applied to this role too, but Eric's also applied to 3 other roles outside of his discipline. It goes back to my general thing. You don't focus on anything. You just want a job. You're not passionate about anything. And I've never had a resume or a recruiting consult with a hiring manager where they didn't say something like, I really want somebody who's passionate at this job. If you're applying to multiple disciplines, you're not passionate, or you're not expressing passion to me. But you can apply to the manager and senior manager and director role in the same silo. That makes perfect sense because, hey, I was at Exxon, and I wasn't, but somebody was, and I know Exxon, most people are managers at Exxon. Even people who have a P&L responsibility, they're called a manager. So you don't necessarily know what the structure is in there until you actually talk to somebody. All right. Eric's got a question. And again, if you have any more live questions, I have all the time for live questions up until 11 o'clock. So feel free to filter them in. I will continue to answer them. But if not, don't worry. This will be the last question then. But Eric, I have a couple of different resumes depending on which job I'm applying to. However, my LinkedIn profile might be more leaning towards project management rather towards sales and account management. Any suggestions? Yes. Make sure, well, first of all, whichever one you're more passionate about, Eric, make sure that's where your LinkedIn profile is leading, okay? You have an opportunity to put header on your LinkedIn profile. A couple of disciplines isn't as big of a deal as 6 or 7. And I've mentioned a candidate or client that I've worked with a lot who was a product development manager, business development manager, a marketing person, a leader, and sub-C stuff. So we had 5 functions on his resume. It's a little bit more challenging, right, when you have that many, but in your case, it's not tough. I would say as long as your LinkedIn profile is true, if you like doing both jobs, spruce up the area that's lacking. Make it a true 50-50 blend, because those kind of go together, right? When you're doing project management, I'm a certified PMP, you got clients all over the place. You're dealing with customer relations. You never want to upsell them or gold plate them, but you always want to make sure that you're delivering stuff as expected, and that they put changes in, that you're addressing those changes. So account management and project management go hand in hand. So I'm glad you're focusing your resume on how you're applying. I just would say on the LinkedIn side, make sure that they both sides come off equally proficient. That's the right way to say it. Make sure that you're coming across like someone that can do both jobs equally well. That's also why I hate skills sections on resumes. This is just my opinion and a bunch of other people, but maybe not the hiring manager who's hiring you. But skills sections, when you have 15 things on there, project management, I'm trying to look for one because I don't have it with me. Sorry, I don't have a resume that I just did recently. But when you have 5 or 6 different disciplines, and then you say project management, leadership, time management, quality management, and there's all these different things on there. I don't have an idea of what you're actually good at. I just know you know a bunch of keywords and you put them on this resume. But by adding more, you're kind of watering down the ones you're an expert in. And I'm going to assume you can't be a 10 out of 10 in everything. Therefore, I'm naturally going to assume you're not very good at everything, or you're just okay at everything. Because let's be honest, we've all worked with people that can do anything, but you can't do, I had a great expression. I can do anything, but I can't do everything. And when you're applying to a job, you need to make sure that you don't come across as you can do anything. You need to come across like you can do the job that you're applying for very, very well. Okay, I don't see any more questions. So thank you so much for those questions today. I really appreciate it. Again, I will give you a few more seconds to write down all of my stuff. If you like this, again, please share it. When we get done with this, please share that you watched it. Please share it with your network. There's people all over that can utilize this information to become better. Oh, I got one more quick question. I'll come to you. Do not worry. There's people all in our networks, right, that can use this. This stuff is free. By you actually liking this, you're actually helping yourself, because guys like me who are recruiters will then look at your activity levels and go, oh, look, they're not just passively applying to a bunch of jobs. They're trying to get better in their skills. By liking this, it actually helps you get a job. I know that's a stretch. I get it. It definitely benefits me probably by you liking it more than me than you benefiting. But either way, okay, quick question. My resume shows my contract positions. The hiring manager always says, why did you stay in one job? Why did you not stay? Good. At the end of any contract roles, so I always like to put company name, visualize this if you can, on your resume. You're going to have the company name, dates inside the company, then your position, and then any accomplishments. Next to your position, I would put open parenthesis, close parenthesis, contractor. Do that, highlight, answer the question before it's asked. Put contractor. Now, if you've been a contractor, and I'm going to get your name wrong, but I'm going to give it a shot. Sohail. If you've been a contractor for too many companies, I'm going to assume you can't work for anybody. Okay, so in your cover letter, you might notice in my resume, I've been a contractor at 18 different companies over the past 10 years. I am really ready to partner with a company and be an employee or something like that. But that's the question that you're not going to get asked. And if I see too many job hops, too many small gaps, but if I don't see contractor stuff, that is going to that's going to be a question I'm concerned about. So answer that question before it's asked. And I'd love to be one of your 30 for 30s. Now, it only says LinkedIn user to me. I'm sure on actual LinkedIn, it says who you are. So thank you. I use a software to live stream on LinkedIn at the same time as well as YouTube. But yes, email me. I will type in a Martin626 in the comments right now. Email me your resume, and I will be sure to chat with you. You were talking about skills, which good, perfect. Well, thank you so much, LinkedIn user. I definitely this is what a consult's like. It's me being all amped up and you saying, hey, settle down. This isn't that exciting. It's a resume. Okay, we're done. Goes by fast. So again, last plug. Follow me on Facebook. Hired How to Get the Job. If you like this stuff. Follow me on Instagram. Hired How to Get the Job. Follow that. Share those posts. I do daily tips on Instagram. Often in the middle of doing a resume review, resume refresh, I'll pop it on Instagram and I'll say, hey guys, here's a quick thing that I just noticed that might be relevant to you. Daily tips over there on Instagram. Hired How to Get the Job. Look at my blog, How to Get the Job. Lots of articles there. And then lastly, if there's anybody subscribe to my YouTube channel, of course. One more time, because people pop in and pop out. Lastly, if there's anybody in your network that's like you who's looking for a job, please share my information with them so I can help show them how to get the job. I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for all your participation today. Bye.